Hey, you guys, welcome back to So Can You. Today I am going to be making a Racerback romper. And if you follow along with this step-by-step tutorial, so can you. Okay, so the Racerback romper that I'm going to be making today is going to have a snap placket in the front, and the back will be the Racerback version, and it will be the shorties with leg bands. The pattern I'm using is the new Everest pattern from Samantha Marie Design. I've got a link in the comments, in the description of this video for that. If you haven't already gotten it, you can follow along. Okay, so here's the pieces that we need for this version. Okay, we need the back piece and then a back lining piece. If you're cutting this, you'll notice that there are several cut lines for the straps. There's one if you want to add a snap on the front, or if you want to do a knotted strap. I cut mine on the sewn in strap portion. And then there's also a line right here for where you can cut the lining. So it could be fully lined. If you wanted to do it fully lined, it could be fully lined. Or you can cut it in at the lining point, which is just a little bit shorter. Okay, so we need the back pieces, the back piece and the lining. And then because I am doing the snap placket, when I cut my front pieces, I cut it with that extra piece, and I cut two opposites of both the front main and the front lining. Okay, so I cut opposites of these. And then you also need two leg bands. So I'm gonna move all of this out of the way and start with the back. So what I'm gonna do first, I am going to lay my back piece out right side up, and then I am going to lay my lining piece on it and match it up. And then I am going to serge or sew the raw edges together along the V and along the Racerback portion. So I'm gonna leave this part open. I'm gonna leave the tops of the straps open, and just sew down here, here, and here. Okay, so once you have serged or sewn these raw edges closed, you have essentially attached your main back piece to your lining back piece. Okay, so we want to turn this right sides out. There's tons of ways to do this. Usually the easiest way that I find is I'll just stick my finger in here and figure out a way to like hook this to start pulling it back through. Okay, this is a size 9 to 12, no, 6 to 9. This is a size 6 to 9 months. So you can do this with some sizes they're a little bit smaller, you won't be able to do this with. There's a ton of tools out there that you can use to help you turn a tube. You could have left a long tail and used a hemostat, whatever your jam is, you could have done that. Okay, so now that I have this turned out, oh my gosh, this is gonna be so cute. So I am making a size 6 to 9 months. This is gonna be for my niece. Hopefully she'll be able to wear this all summer long. This is gonna be adorable. Okay, so now that I have the back part constructed, lining and main, I'm just gonna set this aside and we're gonna work on the front for the snap placket, okay? Okay, so now we're actually ready to move on to constructing the front pieces and putting our snap placket in place, okay? So first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to turn the lining pieces right sides together on top of my main front pieces. You guys have to excuse my voice. Somehow I've just had this nagging cold and I seem to have like started to like really lose my voice. So you'll have to bear with me there. Okay, so you wanna match up. So we've got our two front pieces and you'll wanna match up right sides together, the lining pieces for each one. So you wanna match up this side seam, the armpit seam, and the top front and the side. They'll match up perfectly. So our first step here is going to be to sew down this armpit portion on both pieces. Okay, you guys, so now that I have this portion sewn together, the next step is to start the snap placket. And what the instructions say for the snap placket is to fold the main piece over inside toward the lining 1 inch, okay? So that would be right here, 1 inch. And clip it. Now, your sewist brain is probably telling you, wait. What are we doing here? Why is it gonna be inside out? Well, what we're doing here is we're preparing to sew this here. We're gonna sew the strap into here. And then once we do, we're gonna flip this out, okay? So like the designer of this pattern told me, you just have to trust the process, okay? So we've turned this in. I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. And when I'm turning things over a certain amount, I like to line them up on my cut mat and then use that 1 inch mark. See, I line mine up here, and then that 1 inch mark is where my fold is on the other side. And I'm gonna do that on this side as well. Okay, so now that I've gotten both of these pinned, it is time to put our straps for our Racerback into the sides of our top of the romper, okay? And this is necessary in the process of showing the snap placket. So what we want to do is make sure that the lining side is facing the lining and the outside is facing the main as well, okay? And we just want to get these right up as close to the seam allowance here as we can. And we're gonna clip that in place. And then we will do the same thing on the other side. We'll probably have to scoot this over a little bit. Perfect. Okay. Okay, now our next step is keeping these separate. We are going to sew here across the top and here across this top. Okay, so now what we've done is we sewed these top two seams here where our snap plackets turned out. I'm gonna scoot this down a little bit and zoom in so you can see. All right, so we sewed right here and right here, and we definitely trusted the process because look how this turned out. Okay, so there is where our strap fits into the front of one side, and same on the other side. Okay, so let's see what this looks like turned out. Well, would you look at that? When you turn it out, what you've got here is, just make a nice little flip here. And now you've got a nice edge. Okay, so once you do have that top sewn, I like to just turn this guy right side out and clip like all these little seams in place so that we know exactly what we're working with and nothing's gonna get, you know, just flipped over, or, you know, there's nothing we miss in the process of this. Okay, so I'm going to match up this seam here, clip this, perfect. And I'll do the same with this side. Awesome. Okay, so that's just what I like to call like a little bit of housekeeping for our project. We want to make sure that we've got all the pieces in the right places and all of that, okay? All right, so the next step of that, trust the process for sewing these, is that now we flip this right side out, okay? And now we get to flip our snap placket in place, okay? So what we're gonna do here is we're just gonna take this and flip this corner, flip that corner, there we go. And again, sticking with that 1 inch allowance all the way over, we have now created our placket here. Okay, we just need to make sure that all these guys are lining up, and it is just going to be folded right into here. So what we see on the top, let me zoom in here. Okay, so this lining is just going to be folded right into our placket, so that then we've turned this corner out. So then what we see on the top of the garment is a nice, beautiful closed edge. And what we see going down looks nice as well, okay? So then from here, what we're going to do is just kind of clip all these in place, and we are going to top stitch along this 1 inch mark all the way down. Okay, so now that we have folded this, I had to start my video over because I didn't have any pins. Now that we have folded this, what we have is a beautiful edge right at the top, and then along the back side, it all looks really, really nice. And all we're going to do is we're going to make sure that this is all at 1 inch, and we're going to we're going to pin this in place, and then we are going to top stitch down the front side, just like this, 1 inch. We'll just top stitch right here, 1 inch from our placket. And you may notice that you have right here where the leg goes, you might have a little bit, teeny little bit of extra. Just trust the process, leave it there for now. Go ahead and top stitch it down where you need to. You will serge over it later, and it's just going to secure that snap placket a little bit better. So if you have any extra here of the placket that's like looks to be hanging around where it's not supposed to be, don't worry about that. We're going to match it up with the back, and we're going to serge off or cut off anything that we don't need at that time. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to use my cover stitch, and I'm going to cover stitch right down to top stitch this. Okay friends, so this is what your snap placket is going to look like once you have top stitched. Okay, so let me see if I can zoom in here. Perfect. Okay, so this is the top. That's what the top looks like. I did use my cover stitch here to top stitch. This is what the inside looks like. Okay, so really nice and clean. And let me scoot this down so you can see the whole thing. And that's what the rest of the bottom looks like from the inside and the outside. Okay, so we have this 1 inch snap placket here. Now, this is the place where you are going to add your snaps here, or buttons if you choose to do buttons. I'm definitely gonna do buttons with this because I feel like it's got a button vibe going on. This material just really screams buttons to me. So that's what I'm planning on doing with mine. And I will show the other side of the snap placket just one more time. Okay, so I've zoomed in for this side. I wanted to show the snap placket just one more time from the beginning. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn out this corner here. Okay, so we have a nice finished edge right on the top. It's gorgeous. And then keeping our lining matched up with our front, we are going to just fold this 1 inch seam allowance all the way down, and we can pin this as we go. Just keep with this 1 inch allowance here, and then we'll top stitch, okay? So moving on down, we will just keep this 1 inch allowance all the way down. And again, what I mentioned was, and you can see it more actually on this side, is that there's a little bit of extra snap pocket. Don't worry about that. When we go to connect the front to the back, we will most likely serge this off, or we can cut it off if you're using your sewing machine and you're using a zigzag here or a different stretch stitch here, you can just trim this off with scissors once you have that connected. But just leave it here for now and we'll trim off any extra later. Okay, so now that we have this 1 inch on this side, let me zoom out a little bit again. What we'll do is the same thing. We'll go all the way down right here, top stitching. Now, if you do not have a cover stitch, you can definitely still top stitch using you can use a straight stitch with just make sure that you lengthen your stitch length, your stitch length enough. And you shouldn't have an issue with this because it's not in an area really of major stretch. So you shouldn't have an issue using a long straight stitch here. Just make sure you lengthen your straight stitch if you're going to use that. You can also use a twin needle if that's your jam. You can use a twin needle to top stitch here as well, which gives you that zigzag stretch stitch on the back side. Okay, I'm interrupting your tutorial for a quick side note. I didn't do a great job top stitching this, and so I did have to rip this seam allowance. If you do not have one of these, you need to get one ASAP. Okay, so you take your seam ripper and you rip down the back side of your cover stitch or your zigzag right there. And then the cool thing is this is an eraser. Okay, so you hold your fabric and you just use the eraser and it pulls the little threads right out. So instead of having to pick all of these, it just pulls them right out of the fabric. Now, this does work a lot better with wovens. This is cotton lycra and it works really good too with cotton lycra. But it doesn't work great with like thinner knits like some of your double brush polyester. But yeah, all this just comes right out as long as you hold it tight. See how fast that comes out? Hopefully you can see that. You just come right out. So then instead of picking all these out, you've just kind of done that. And then you've got your needle threads on the back side that then you can just pull. Okay, cool. Well, I'll go ahead and link this in the description because you're going to want to buy it. Okay, so now that we have both of our snap plackets sewn, I'm really not going to show the step of closing the side seams on this video because I do have a full video for this exact piece here that shows what I did before we started the snap placket and what I'll do after as well. But I do want to point out that what we want to do is pick which side we want to go on top. I really like the look of this side, so that's what I'm going to pick for this time. I am going to do buttons. So my button holes will be on my top piece and I will sew my buttons on the underside piece, okay? Now, what we want to do with the bottom here is, remember, we're going to have like that little bit of extra. No worries. What we want to do is line up this corner here. Make sure that our placket is overlapped nicely. And we want to line up the other corner as well because we are going to use our back side as a guide when we're closing this tiny little crotch seam here. Of course, I would pick a tiny small piece, a tiny small size when I did my video, but hey, we've got this little piece right here that we would close up. Okay, so that's it for your snap placket. Okay, if you're gonna add snaps, you wanna add, you know, one set of snaps to one side and the other set to the other side with the male and female parts facing each other here, all right? And you don't wanna get those mixed up and then sew it together. So however you guys do that, that's totally up to you, however you wanna apply your snaps. Or if you wanna do buttons, I'm absolutely gonna do buttons on this one because I think it's gonna look adorable. But I'm gonna finish up the tutorial, and I hope you guys have enjoyed the snap pocket portion. Okay, so if you're sticking with me for the rest of the tutorial, then here's what. Okay, we have got to close these side seams. We've got to close this crotch seam, so we got to close these two side seams. Everything else is pretty much done, all right? We got to close these two side seams, we got to close this crotch seam, and then we have to sew our bands onto the legs, okay? And that's gonna be the end of what we've got going on here, okay? So let's talk about these. What we're gonna wanna do is open this up. I am going to clip together my two, my snap plackets here, and I'm just gonna open this straight up, okay? Now, what we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna right sides together, we're gonna line up our lining. Can you see the whole thing here? Yes, you can. Okay, we're gonna line up our lining. So starting here, I'm gonna put a clip right here. Then we're gonna get to this underarm seam. I'm gonna take these two clips off that we had. These were just in place as markers, if you remember. And I am going to just put those one way and one the other way just to make it easy, okay? And then we are going to follow it down around the main side as well, all the way down. And what we are going to do essentially then is just sew down this big straight side, right, that we've created. Let me get it. Sorry for my children hollering, if y'all can hear that. You're gonna sew all the way from the lining, all the way down the main with the right sides together, and you're just gonna wanna catch these two raw edges right here. We're gonna do that on both sides. Okay, so once we have sewn down, here's the lining portion. Here's where those armpits meet. And then this is the main, okay? So when we turn this out, got that backwards there. When we turn this out, what I like to do is just put a little clip on there, okay? That just starts to help flatten that spot out. I'll do the same thing over here. Just put a little clip on this, okay? So now here's what our inside looks like, okay? Now, what I like to do here, whenever I do a lining like this, I like to just line up these seam allowances here, and I like to take my sewing machine and just do a tiny little stitch right here to hold my lining down. That is just totally optional. If you want to do that, you're more than welcome to. I take my lining, I hold the two seam allowances here in my hand. Okay, so I'm holding the two seam allowances, and I just stitch along these two seam allowances right here. I just give myself a little straight stitch or a little zigzag stitch just to hold these two together. And that is totally optional. To me, I feel like it helps hold the lining down so you don't have any issues with it riding up. I'm in Florida, so it doesn't make sense for me to fully line this baby. That would be way too hot. So I will just stitch this down on either side. Okay, so like I had mentioned, I did stitch my lining down. And that is not something that you can see from the outside of the garment, and it is totally optional. Here's the outside. You can't see that at all. Okay, so again, that part was completely optional. You can't see it from the outside. It doesn't show. It just, to me, it can help in the wearability of the piece, holds that lining down so that it doesn't ride up while it's being worn. Okay, so we just have a few things left to do before we are finished with this guy. And the next one is going to be to sew this crotch seam closed. We want to make sure that our points are lined up with the points on the front of our leg holes. And we also want to make sure that our snap placket is overlapping. And we are just going to serge or sew this seam together using the back side as our guide here. Okay, because remember, we're gonna have the little bit, see this little bit of extra we have sticking out there. We're just gonna want to make sure that that we're following the back guide when we're sewing, okay? And I'm just gonna use my serger to cut this off. If I was using my sewing machine, I would let my sewing machine go and then I would trim it, okay? So I am going to flip this. Flip this out and line up this back side. I did hold mine together because I didn't want to lose the way that I want this to lay. And I'm first going to line up the side that goes down first. There. And then my other point as well. Okay, and on this small size, the snap placket is just like right there, okay? So we are going to just serge or sew this little cove right here. This little cove. Just using the back side as our guide. Okay, you can actually see the little loop on the back side. All right, let's do that. Okay, so here's our little curve sewn. We have then created our 2 leg holes here and here. I'm gonna turn this right side out so we can see we've got our snap plackets overlapping here. Okay. All right, so here we are. Now, if, for me, with my buttonholes, okay, I am probably gonna start my first button like here-ish. So I felt really confident going ahead and closing this area first. If you were not confident in that and you wanted to go ahead and add your snaps before, that's totally fine too. It's just kind of whatever makes you feel comfortable moving forward. But remember, if you are adding snaps and you're gonna put one close to this crotch seam, you want and use the snaps, do the snaps first and then close the crotch. You do want to make sure that it's not gonna like be run over with your foot or hinder you doing anything else like sewing wise. So you do want to keep that in mind. Okay, so now what we've got here is the last thing we need to do is put our leg, our bands on our leg holes. So for the bands, I'm going to be using this rib from Million Dot. I love it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the rib and I'm going to fold it long ways, right sides together, and then I am going to fold it again using the ham hot method. I am going to sew these 4 raw edges closed to create my band. Okay, these 4 raw edges here to create my band. Here's my band. Create my band. I'm going to do the same thing with both of these. Okay, so now that I have sewn those 4 raw edges together, I am going to make tiny little nick points with my scissors to indicate the halfway point of my bands before I turn these out. Okay, so I have given these little snip. Hopefully you can see that. Yep. And then all I'm going to do is just flip this band right side out. Okay. Now, the last thing that I need to do is attach this band here to the leg hole. What I like to do is I like to use this seam and match it up to the outside. Just find that it's a little bit easier. So what I am going to do is pin this to the outside of this leg hole. I am going to take a look up this seam and see which side this lays down. Okay, so we want this seam to lay the same way all the way. So I just kind of went up here and checked to see which way this seam was laying. And then I want to make sure when I pin my leg cuff on that my seam continues to lay the same way. It just helps everything not be as bulky and just be more comfortable for the person who is going to be wearing this. Okay, so then our 2 nipped points, we are going to line those up right here at our crotch seam. And I always like to push this seam allowance towards the back of the garment. That's a personal preference, but you know, whichever one you want to do is fine. Just want to make sure that you repeat that action on the other side. So then we're going to take this to our sewing machine or our serger, and we will just serge or sew right around this circle. So we're going to be sewing 3 raw edges together all the way around. Okay. And then we'll repeat that same thing with this guy that we did the same thing to. We serge those 4 raw edges. We're gonna nip, and then I'll pin it around here, and I will serge that one on just the same. Remember, we've got 3 raw edges here, and we will have to stretch the band a little bit as we're getting it on. You do wanna stretch the band, not the fabric that you are attaching it to, okay, as you serge. We're gonna go all the way around in a circle, and when we get back to the beginning, we're gonna overlap just about 1 inch and then serge off. Okay, I'm gonna do that now, and this one as well. Okay, so once you have sewn your band on all the way around, and you flip it out, it looks just like this. Okay, look how sweet that is. Now, this is where I'm going to end my tutorial. I'm not honestly the best at buttonholes or buttons. I can probably find you a better resource for that. Just based off of my experience with buttonholes and buttons, I'm not going to show that on here, just simply because I literally use a buttonhole attachment, and I cross my fingers that it doesn't screw up while I'm using it. But what I'm probably gonna do is I'm gonna start about right here, and I'm gonna put buttons about 2 inches apart, and see where that lands me, and I may move them around just a little bit. If you were doing snaps, I would do the same thing. I would maybe start at the top or start in the middle and space those out about 1.5 to 2 inches apart, depending on how your garment lies. But how cute is this? I will go ahead and stop the video and I will put on my buttons and then I will come back and do my closing so y'all can see the actual finished product when I tell you how much fun I had making this with you guys, okay? So I'm gonna put these buttons and buttonholes on and I'll be right back. Okay, so here it is, our finished project. It turned out so super cute. I went ahead and put all of the buttons and the buttonholes on it. I did use the buttonhole attachment on my sewing machine. I know there is a way to do it if you don't have one. I'm gonna have to do some searching and practicing, and maybe I'll be able to make a video for you. If you have a buttonhole attachment, I would suggest that you change your needles before you use it, because that made a huge difference for me in not having buttonholes that were getting messed up. Anyway, this is so super cute. I love it. It is going to be a summer staple for sure, and I cannot wait to see this on a little baby. I had so much fun making this Everest romper with you guys today, and if you follow along with this step-by-step tutorial, so can you. I'll see you next time, guys. Bye.